Hello and welcome to the News 9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News 9 Plus. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Khalistan come up once again. This time when the Prime Minister was addressing a gathering of Sikhs on the Khalsa Day, Khalistan Zindabad slogans were raised. Prime Minister Trudeau was seen smiling and seemed okay when a gathering to celebrate a cultural festival asked for the breakup of another country. He assured nearly 800,000 Canadians of Sikh heritage that his government will increase security around Gurdwaras. Now, Canada has the second largest Sikh population in the world, and Prime Minister Trudeau's government is supported by NDP party, whose leader Jagmeet Singh is a Khalistani sympathizer, an open one at that. Prime Minister Trudeau's government in the past has protected people indulging in anti-India activities, and Prime Minister Trudeau is yet to provide the proof on India's involvement in the killing of Nijar. But why is Canada constantly giving political space to separatism, extremism and violence? Joining me to discuss this are Ambassador Bhashwati Mukherjee, former Special Director in the IB Yashovardhan Azad, and my colleague Aditya Raj Kaul here in the studio. Welcome to the News 9 Plus show. Aditya, any surprises about the Khalistan slogans that you heard? Is Prime Minister Trudeau never going to disappoint us when it comes to Khalistan?
Clearly he won't. Is it a surprise at all, Sandeep, that, for last several months we've been discussing Khalistan threadbare. We have researched this, we have made several documentaries, and it hits us yet again.
Yes.
Immediately after the G20 last year, this propaganda gained yet another momentum.
Right.
Where Justin Trudeau has gone all out in support of the Khalistan. He has not left any other, any other move left to, in fact, prove his stance very clearly.
Right.
And while privately, Canadian diplomats and the Canadian government conveyed to India that steps would be taken to keep them under check and control, clearly it seems that no action has been taken. And yet again, on the Khalistan Day, we saw three prominent leaders, Justin Trudeau, Jagmeet Singh, and the leader of the opposition, Pierre Poilievre, who clearly came in support, but only one leader, Pierre Poilievre, did not support the Khalistan stand openly.
Right.
It was both Justin Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh clearly supporting the Khalistanis out there.
Right.
Jagmeet Singh is not a Khalistani sympathizer, mind you. He's a Khalistani himself.
Right.
He said that, he will do whatever is possible to make Khalistan happen and at the same time involve legislation for Sikh genocide in India in 1984.
Right.
So clearly, Justin Trudeau is doing whatever is possible, and probably in the later part of the discussion, we'll see and discuss that there are two things happening parallelly, Sandeep.
Right.
One is the appeasement of the Khalistanis and the terror supporters by Justin Trudeau government.
Right.
And second is the deep state in United States and Canada working in tandem to, in fact, build pressure on India.
Right. Absolutely. Mr. Azad, this is an issue that we've been discussing here at News 9. As Aditya mentioned, we've done a series of documentaries on the fact that how Khalistan, a movement that has died out in India, and thanks to the efforts of officers like you and your colleagues who've eradicated that menace from India from the 80s and the 90s. Today, it's alive and it's well and it's being celebrated and it's being featured in Canada of all places, which didn't seem to have any bone against India. And today Khalistan slogans are being openly called for. My point is that have we reached a point of no return in Canada when you have prime ministers openly endorsing calls for Khalistan? Has vote bank politics literally, reached the point of no return in Canada, that this very small minority of Khalistani sympathizers has now become a majority?
Well, Sandeep, it's extremely unfortunate that we have to discuss this on a public platform about India relations in the shadow of Khalistanis. And, ironically, there is more threat from Khalistanis in Canada to Indians than in India, where you say that it has actually rapidly vanished, except for some residual, acts of crime which are being perpetrated from there. Unfortunately, these relations between India and Canada have been continuing for long, and it has a history from Kanishka bombing, as you would appreciate, because when they failed to act on the intelligence inputs, And in
Yes.
fact, the commission itself, which came later, said the same thing,
Right.
that the government did not do anything. So, given that background, and then this continuous, migration of these Sikhs who are going there in the name of Khalistan,
Yes.
Major went as a plumber,
Right.
and he was there hanging around without getting any, asylum or status till he finally managed it. And this
Right.
man in British Columbia was organizing an arms training camp in 2015.
Right.
So,
Absolutely.
this kind of activity, unfortunately, you were asking whether it will continue, and I think it will continue for two reasons. One is that the Gurdwaras are really asserting themselves over
Right.
there now.
Right.
But they have the money, they have the cash, and
Yes.
therefore these people who are coming, they have a regular kind of a safe haven from there they can
Right.
operate.
Right.
Secondly, as you rightly said, is the vote bank politics,
Right.
which has taken over. Now, I wouldn't say that. What Trudeau did will constitute a kind of he's a politician.
Right.
He's a prime minister. Baisakhi celebration is a very, very important event, Sandeep. And
Yes.
in Punjab, in fact, when we were monitoring the activities, we used to actually see in Hola Mohalla, Baisakhi celebration, which Gurdwara or which particular group has
Right.
garnered the maximum strength.
Right.
So I understand that the Prime Minister has to go there. But definitely, the three things which they are condoning is absolutely unpardonable. That
Right.
is threat to our diplomats,
Yes.
obstructing their routine activities, vandalizing our flag.
Right.
Now, this is something which the NIA is compiling dossiers
Yes.
to. Canada is not replying, and Canada has not even extradited. So, unfortunately, in the end, I have to agree with you that yes, this kind of a stalemate looks like continuing for some time.
Vote bank politics down the path of no return. Ambassador Mukherjee, I want to ask you this scenario that imagine for a moment if India were sheltering separatists from another country, a European country. For instance, Quebec. If Quebec wants to secede from Canada, you have a whole lot of Quebecians or whatever they're called sitting here in India and raising free Quebec slogans, and India provides shelter to those kind of people. What would be the consequences for something like this? Wouldn't there be hell to pay? I'm just asking if these kind of things that are condoned by Canada, if they were to be repeated if the shoe was on the other foot, how would the world react to this?
Well, actually, Sandeep, what you said demonstrates the continuing double standards in international relations.
Right.
Not the whole world, it's just the West. Because
Yes.
the whole world, the global South, etc., does not approve of Justin Trudeau's behavior, and
Right.
nor do they support this kind of vote bank policy. But let us look at the incident in its perspective, just as my batchmate and friend, Mr. Yashovardhan Azad, just
Right.
pointed out. Baisakhi is very important.
Yes.
It was on Baisakhi in 1919 when Jallianwala Bagh happened.
Right.
India's in the middle of an election, and instead of talking about Baisakhi as it represents the true Sikh Punjab Indian culture,
Right.
it was desecrated in a way by these slogans.
Yes.
And some people try to argue that Mr. Trudeau does not understand Punjabi, so maybe it took him some time to understand, but the
Right.
slogans were very clear. It was Khalistan Zindabad, which is something that you must be familiar with. Which
Right.
brings us to the next question, which is that there are 2% Sikhs in Canada,
Right.
2% Hindus, 56% practicing Christians,
Right.
and the rest are actually agnostic. They say they have no religion. Out of these 2% Sikhs, everyone is not a Khalistani.
Right.
Therefore, they represent a minuscule minority.
Yes.
So this Jagmeet Singh, in a way, is actually trying to blackmail Trudeau
Right.
into supporting his minuscule movement, because, as Yasho said, the Gurdwaras have become powerful.
Yes.
Gurdwaras have become recruiting grounds.
Right.
The Gurdwaras are actually trying to build up opinion to support Trudeau, provided he does certain things.
Right.
Earlier, they were bringing misguided Sikh youth from Punjab to Canada, to Vancouver. That has fortunately stopped. So now they are falling back on what they had. I
Right.
don't think that this movement, so-called movement, matters at all. In India, it's been wiped out, as Yashu said.
Yes.
And in Canada, it only matters as long as Trudeau is in power and he has to call elections early next year, which they say he's going to lose.
Right.
Once a conservative government comes to power in Canada,
Yes.
this absolute charade will end. But
Right.
what we need to do in the meantime is to crack down very hard on
Right.
such people, and if it is going to impact bilateral relations, so be it. Because if Justin Trudeau thinks that he can bring pressure on the world's largest democracy, which has excellent bilateral relations with Canada,
Yes.
which is a fellow Commonwealth country, in the middle of a national election in this manner,
Right.
he's mistaken. We are not a banana republic. We're not
Right.
going to take pressure from any country.
Right.
And I think he will find out after when he's driven out of power how much damage he has done in the short and medium term to a robust, good bilateral relationship that we enjoyed, Canada and India.
Absolutely, very important points there, Ambassador Mukherjee. And Aditya, short-term gain and long-term damage. That's what Justin Trudeau's plan seems to be with the Khalistan movement. But I was reading your social media post a few days back, and you said if Justin Trudeau wants Khalistan so badly, he should actually, declare it in Canada itself. They have a lot of territory there, I'm told. So one province surely can be renamed Khalistan, and he can give Jagmeet what he wants.
Actually, my friend shifted to Canada recently,
Right.
and he told me that from one portion to another, it took almost 20 hours to travel.
Right.
So there are huge forest lands, there is massive territory
That's
in
right.
Canada. So why not declare a Khalistani sovereign state within the parameters of Canada?
Absolutely.
If his heart really bleeds for the Khalistanis.
Right.
But the larger question here is, Sandeep, on a serious note, that Justin Trudeau is only walking on the footsteps of his father.
Yes.
His father looked the
Pierre
other way
Trudeau.
during Kanishka
Right.
bombing. He did not take steps. He knew what was going to happen. There were intelligence reports.
Yes.
And now there are not only intelligence reports.
Yes.
It's in the public domain. It's
Right.
on social media. It's on public, functions openly on
Yes.
Canadian soil. In this case, in Ontario, across Toronto, across Brampton, all
Right.
across.
Right.
There are events that are being happening in
Tableaus are
which
being,
Indira Gandhi,
Indira Gandhi's tableaus, of course.
what was her crime? Indira Gandhi is being celebrated, her killing is being celebrated.
Yes.
And at the same time, there are, these posters against Prime Minister Narendra Modi that he would be attacked, posters of Ajit Doval,
Yes.
Jai Shankar, Amit Shah, at the same time, Indian diplomats. So,
Yes.
in no country will this be tolerated.
Right.
Just like you mentioned, just like our esteemed guests mentioned, that in any country in the West as well, if there are openly posters
Right.
of foreign diplomats being shown killed
Yes.
or bounty announced in their name, there will
Absolutely.
be strict, swift action. But in
Absolutely.
this
Threats
case,
of violence against diplomats are not tolerated by any country.
cannot be tolerated. And one is the Vienna Convention
Yes.
that the diplomats and the officers have to abide by. Second, there are some diplomatic, not niceties, but protocols
Right.
that you have to abide by, and these are understood. But at the same time, in the case of Canada,
Yeah.
which preaches the world and the entire West that preaches the world on rules-based order.
Right.
Where is this rules-based order for the Canadians?
Right.
Why isn't the Canadian government acting as per the principles of democracy, rules-based
Right.
order, international order, which clearly indicate that in a case of separatism, in a case where violence is being sought, where
Right.
provocation towards violence is being sought, there needs to be swift action. On the other hand, we see the RCMP looking the other way. We
Right.
see his political partner Jagmeet Singh provoking further violence.
Yes.
And when dossiers are shared with the Justin Trudeau government, they
Right.
say we can't act.
Right. Mr. Azad, the points that Aditya just made, isn't this how intelligence organizations really function? Because, the Khalistan movement kind of gives the Canadians a lever, especially the intelligence agencies. You have a ready-made set of, can we say, informants, people that can be used as tools as leverage, as foreign policy leverage, and those are extremely precious. Do you see that Canadian intelligence agencies actually using the Khalistani movement and its activities and its activists against India as levers, as intelligence tools?
You see, absolutely right. I mean, I wish we had some Quebecans here.
Right.
We would have certainly some fringe elements and tremendous leverage we would have had.
Right.
You gain a lot of information.
Yes.
You have a lot of activities, which I need not say on this platform. But it has also been observed that some of these wildest supporters of Khalistan have
Right.
been having frequent meetings with the ISI agents who are there in Canada. And in
Right.
fact, it's actually exposed even. But let me also endorse Ashwati's views
Yes.
when she said that two things she said, and I am totally for it, that there is a benign kind of a benefactor in
Right.
the personality of Mr. Trudeau.
Right.
And he's facing an election next year.
Yes.
Nobody been so what you call benign or kind to the Khalistani activities over there,
Right.
in the wake of such blatant disregard of all canons of diplomacy.
Yes.
The second point, which is said that a very tough action should be taken, I totally endorse it. Here, NIA has done a tremendously good
Yes.
job.
Right.
First, it is designating more and more of these people as terrorists, number one. Red corner notices have been issued, and
Right.
even then expedition is not taking place.
Right.
And therefore, the attachment of properties have also started in Punjab.
Yes.
This is what they deserve. Like one of the terrorists who had come to India, and the NIA had done an investigation in Britain
Yes.
when he was vandalizing the embassy, and he has been caught over here. This
Right.
is the right approach against these Canadian Khalistanis who are trying to survive on the basis of trying to show more and more activities
Yes.
and gain some kind of recognition from the SI and the Canadian government to show that they have influence amongst their own community. The other thing which I wanted to say, which is a serious thing, is that
Yes.
there is an MP there, I think Chanda Arya,
Yes, yes,
Hindu
yes.
MP, who has, made it public, belongs to Trudeau party,
Right.
and has openly said that threat is being issued out to the non-Sikhs
Right.
Indians in Canada.
Yes.
And yet action is yet to be taken. So on two sets.
Right.
One is the action to be taken for their activities against the Hindus over there, or
Yes.
non-Sikhs Indians, and second is the open hostile action taken against the diplomat, open
Right.
threats given.
Right.
These are two things I think we need to keep into mind, because this will absolutely, create our relations, completely put it in the freeze between India and Canada for
Absolutely. And
some.
it's already happened. Mr. Azad, the relations are in a deep freeze, and every day throws up more and more surprises. We were just discussing it the other day, Aditya and me, about this genocide call for the 1984 riots. That is something that's designed to internationally shame India. But Ambassador Mukherjee, given the fact that we are in 1984, it's the 40th year when we all feared that Punjab would literally, collapse. It was so, violent, the kind of the activities that we saw in Delhi and in Punjab with the Golden Temple. Do you see a kind of ramping up of the rhetoric from Canada? It started with this call for a genocide to be observed for 1984. We are in the thick of elections, and already these surprises are coming up, Khalistan slogans. Do you see the Trudeau government actually ramping up the pro-Khalistan rhetoric this year, and what do you think we must really do in the next couple of months to call them out?
In the first instance, Sandeep, it is very important to remember that there is no Khalistan movement, full
Right.
stop. There is no Khalistan movement in India, and if there is a Khalistan movement in Canada, then it is their Canadian Khalistan movement. There is
Right.
nothing affects India. That's the first point.
Absolutely.
The
Yes.
second is we need not give importance to what is happening in Canada on
Right.
national television in India,
Yes.
because by doing so, we are actually pandering to giving them importance on what they are
Right.
saying. Whereas what they are saying is totally irrelevant in India, in Punjab, and in the context of the national election.
Right.
The third point is that we need to understand that if we wish to reciprocate in any manner, we should do so in a manner that hurts them the most.
Right.
And what would hurt them the most? We have already removed the security outside the Canadian High Commission in Delhi.
Yes.
They tried to reduce our diplomats, we did the same. When we did the same, they were in a situation where they were unable to continue to give visas to young unemployed youth in Punjab whom they were trying to entice and take them to Canada. So that is already impacted. Then there was this whole issue of student visas. Because they don't have people to give student visas, it's fallen. So in a way, if you like, Sandeep, they have been caught enmeshed in their own mesh, in a way.
Right, absolutely.
See.
Canada's
Secondly,
caught
strongly
enmeshed.
advocate.
Yes,
Sorry.
absolutely. Thank you very much, Ambassador Mukherjee. I'm afraid we're completely out of time here, but that's a very important point that you made over there. And Aditya, I wholeheartedly endorse this, the fact that we should not call it the Khalistan movement, we should call it the Canadian Khalistan movement, because that is clearly what this is all about. It is Canada playing to the galleries, playing vote bank politics, as our esteemed guests have just mentioned, and this is the fact that we should call out the Canadian Khalistani movement. We saw it as Trudeau's Canadistan, but it's far worse than that. It's the Canadian Khalistan movement, and I think we should start calling it that. But thank you very much, Ambassador Bashwati Mukherjee, Mr. Yashovardhan Azad, and my colleague Aditya Rajkol for highlighting this grave danger to India's security emanating from, of all the places, Canada. The last time the call for Khalistan reverberated across Punjab, more than 20,000 people were killed. The holy Harmandir Sahib was desecrated and the Prime Minister of India was assassinated. Now, after 30 years, the state once again faces unrest. Has Khalistan come back to haunt Punjab? Catch our story, Khalistan Reborn, on the News 9 Plus app.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's statements sent India-Canada ties into a tailspin.
Of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen.
The truth is, there's a dark history to Canada's relations with India.
Canada is the Pakistan of the Western world.
Has got out of control in Canada. We've seen gangland fights, drug dealing.
Plotting against India, sending money for attacks in India. This has got to stop.
If Canada wants to emulate Pakistan, they will end up in that same fate.
Today we understand why a progressive Canada turned into a haven for extremism of all hues. This is an examination of truth, lies and Trudeau.
Over 150,000 Indians died in road crashes in the year 2021. And this number corresponds to over 11 deaths per 100,000 population. India has the largest accident fatality rate in the world. And over the last decade, road traffic crashes have been the 13th largest contributor to the health burden in India. And for the working age population between 15 and 49 years, they are the 6th largest contributor of death. What are the India-specific road safety effective policies needed to be put in place to reduce accidents? Joining me to discuss this are Vinesh Menon, Dr. S. Velumurugan, and my colleague Justin Thomas in the studio here. Dr. Velumurugan, welcome to the News 9 Plus show. I want to start by bringing up a graphic on the cost of an accident. It's not just about the loss of life or limb, it's also the cost to the family and to the country. Can we just show that graphic there? Justin, we always think that a road accident is all about the loss of a life or damage to property or a vehicle, but clearly it's much more than that.
Of course, there's a lot of issues, like it's even the Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari recently was blaming the engineers about it, but engineers were blaming over the infrastructure. But again, it all comes down to different things that we have out here. Like for example, the fact that we just have about 1% of vehicles in the world, which accounts for nearly 10% of fatalities on the roads.
Absolutely, 1% of the vehicle population accounting for 10%
Yes,
of
exactly. And we have like 5% of highways, which accounts for almost 50% of our road deaths.
Of our road deaths.
So that means that there is obviously there's a very clear-cut problem in our hands that needs to be controlled from the start. From the where the roads are being built, how it's being built, the education for the people, because people also needs to understand, because I believe a lot of wrong side traveling. All these issues suggest that civic sense needs to be inculcated, very important.
Absolutely. You know, Dr. Velumurugan, this whole point, it all comes out. The figures are very well known. We've been discussing them for years. You know, a couple of years back, I read this piece by A.A. Gill, a late, very famous British writer, where he came to India and he observed the way Indians were driving on the roads, and he said that Indians seem to drive with an astonishing belief in reincarnation. Given the fact that they don't wear seat belts, no helmets, you have to penalize motorists, for wearing, not wearing helmets or not wearing seat belts. Why is this safety culture not there in India, which is, I think, the primary reason for such a high death toll on India's roads? What's your take on this?
Yeah, that's a very, very unfortunate stance which we really come across day in and day out. That is the reincarnation is taken in a different sense altogether by the Indian road users, especially persons who are riding two-wheelers and seat belts, also car users. See, they are contributing for almost 47,000 deaths out of the 168, 1.68 lakh which are getting killed. So the third contributor in terms of other than the speeding is the seatbelt, not wearing seatbelt.
Right.
So the people think, actually speaking, like the culture is not there. They try to wear a seatbelt or wear the helmet only for enforcement.
Yes.
Not get caught away by the police.
Right.
That is the reason they don't think it's safety. One of the major 5 pillars, which is envisaged by the UN Decade of Action for Road Safety.
Right. So Vinesh Menon just joins us. Vinesh, the Transport Minister, Mr. Gadkari, said that one of his key focus areas in the years ahead is going to be to make Indians drive better and, follow road safety and to enforce driving licenses, make sure it's, getting a driving license is not a walk in the park. What do you have to say about this? What does it say about us as a people? The fact that we are pretty lackadaisical when it comes to personal safety and the safety of others, especially on the roads.
I think it's a very important move made by the Honourable Minister. Look, it's pretty well known that India as a country, given the sheer population and the sheer diversity, I think the ability to try and regulate the local citizen in some very, very important areas is not very easy. And alongside that, you also have the great Indian Jugaad culture, which tends to get you to start getting your licenses, since you're talking about that subject, in a manner that's not necessarily the most perfect. Even today, if you go to the RTO, the whole testing process or the procedure still continues to have the same old traditional, doing the typical 8 in a vehicle, and then you end up getting a license. Whereas emphasis needs to be given on even understanding road signals. You need to understand the way. How do you read a very, very important signals of the road? How do you know the whole concept of junctures? How do you know the concept of if you have a main road and the side road, who goes first? These are all small little areas that need to be looked into. But I think given the fact that we are going more and more digital, and given that I think the fact that our licenses are now getting more digitized, the fact that our vehicles are getting more tracked and monitored through CCTV cameras and challans come online, I think the chances of people now starting to not go through the once bitten twice shy mode is higher. I can quote that in a place like Gurgaon, let's say in the Golf Course Road, which is a very important road and pretty fast road, but there is a particular stretch in which the speed limits are kept at 50, and even though there are no police folks standing there, the fact is there is an online camera capturing your speed. And so I see a tendency for a lot of vehicles to start slowing down at that point and then going through that stretch and then again speeding up. So there's a bit of an issue, but I think we're getting there.
We're getting there indeed. But Dr. Melumurugan, what are the 5 things that you think we need to do? Taking off from where Vinesh said that technology is, of course, one of them to enforce, better driving habits among Indians. But what are the 4 things that you would recommend that the government do in the next couple of years to bring down this fatality rate? I mean, this is, it's no one's, guess that this is a very, very high number. This is, it has to be brought down. It's a dubious distinction that we have of these 150,000 deaths. But how would you bring this down? What are the 4 things that you would suggest the government do?
Just See, making our roads safer should be the first and foremost priority. Like, because the government has made it mandatory for different type of roads, starting from the design stage, right up to the road is open for commercial operations. Nowadays, if you see day in and day out, many roads across the national highways, even state highways, are becoming toll roads. So there they have made it mandatory that designs have to be flawlessly done, and that after the design is done, designs should be audited for its safety compliance. That is one way to address this problem, because as we see, many of our expressways are going to come up under the Bharatmala project. They are envisaging 30,000 kilometers of expressways, wherein if you don't make the roads safer, that is one thing. And secondly, the making it intelligent transport system driven, like making the cameras available at every, depending on the type of road. Say, for example, urban context means you should have the cameras in place for every 500 meters. That is one way. If it is for an expressway or a national highway context, every 3rd kilometer there should be a over-speed violation cameras and things like that have to be in place. And also making the people educated. I'll just give a small example. Like we were ruled by the Britishers during the olden days. And similarly, the Sri Lanka was ruled by the Britishers. But you see, if you go to Sri Lanka and see, there's a safety compliance or compliance to the road rules are fantastic, to say the least. Whether there are vehicles entering from a minor road, they do necessarily stop. Or otherwise, if they are making a road safer, means they make it fullest to the safer. Despite the country has undergone recession and things like that. So it's a mindset also.
It's a mindset.
The mindset has to be changed. So the road user's mindset has to be changed. These are the three-pronged approach we need to do.
Absolutely. So very most important thing, Dr. Velumurugan, that you suggested, mindsets need to change. And Justin, we've been talking about this here at the News 9 Plus show about how the government began this drive to get people to use toilets. I think that's been one of the biggest mindset changes post-independence to, end this open defecation. It's not enough just to build toilets, but you have to get that mindset to use the toilets. And I think that's one of the best things that the government did with this campaign, getting no less than Amitabh Bachchan. But what do you see as the government needing to do to change mindsets when it comes to safe driving?
I think the immediate thing that can definitely be done is that in Western countries, you don't get a license without passing those exams, and those exams, a substantial chunk includes about the road safety part also, which is nowhere near in the picture in our, like you can just get a license for that sake. Once that is inculcated, then you have this shift of road safety infrastructure, which is equally important along with building those roads and all. And at the same time, the punishment that is enforceable, like if you see in Delhi right now, the lot of CCTV cameras have sprung up in the just recent few months. Like say,
Vinesh was mentioning that.
Exactly.
In Gurgaon,
so that is an example of how you can while you are educating, at the same time you are also ensuring that it's being enforced at the street level, which is equally important. So it's I guess you have to teach them as well as punish in a way so that it gets to them, because otherwise I don't think we'll be able to get around this curve of this fast-paced accidents.
Get around the curve of fast-paced accidents. Yes, Vinesh, you had a point to make.
I just wanted to make 2 points. One, on the earlier question of what are the areas that the government should work on. I think one area that the government should definitely work on is improve our national emergency services. I mean, fair enough, on one side we have got all these issues, but the fact is that fatalities also increase because they don't get addressed to in the golden hour, the precious golden hour.
Absolutely. The Tamil Nadu and UP paradox that I was going to ask you
Tamil
about.
Nadu, absolutely correct. And I think across the 26 states, we operate, and I'm not talking the private ambulances here, private ambulances and the public ambulances. There are more than 23 to 24,000 ambulances across the country. Now, the fact is we still operate in a era that we operated nearly 15 years back. Whereas everything has changed. We need to have different kinds of ambulances. We need to have bike ambulances, roller skate ambulances. We need to have a very different kind of so that is one. Secondly, as far as the mindset question that you asked about, unfortunately in India, I think I noticed that Indians tend to change only when they get hit.
Right.
And when I say hit, I don't mean physical hit. I mean, I'm talking about, an experience that they then don't want to go through again. For example, I know some people who have been caught by the cops for over-speeding. The licenses have been taken. They had to go to the police station to get the license. Not only do they have to pay a fine, but they have to sit in the police station for 3 hours undergoing a complete training on how to do roads, to do driving. Now, they don't want to do this again. So after that, they get better. So I think, unfortunately, in India, there is a bit of they need to, and therefore I think technology can help. What happens if a person who's driving and commits a crime, let's say it's the third or fourth time he's doing it or she's doing it, and the vehicle just gets impounded or just gets auto locked.
Right.
I'm just giving a futuristic. I think that will then make them. So mindset in India is not proactive; it's a bit reactive, and that's where the nation.
Right, absolutely there. And mindsets are not proactive, they are reactive, Justin. And the good suggestions there, coming out from our experts, the fact that you need to enforce the law more often. And you remember in Kerala, Justin, there was that IPS officer who took over the transport department, and overnight there was a change in the way Keralites drove in certain parts of Kerala, as in like accident rates came down. I know of a hospital along a highway that had to close because the accident rates just collapsed, and people were suddenly driving with helmets on and seat belts on because Mr. Rajarshi Singh made it mandatory. He enforced the law. But as our experts were saying, Justin, I mean, this is something about just enforcing the law that already exists. The fact that you drive without a helmet, you pay a fine. You drive without a seatbelt, you pay a fine. You speed in a no speeding zone, you pay a fine. What keeps us from enforcing the law?
I think the good example, interesting example that I have noticed is the seatbelt enforcement.
Yes.
Which I don't think that, there was
and seatbelts even for rear seats.
Yeah, exactly. It was a concerted campaign over media, across board, where it was not just talking about fine, but it was talking about your own well-being, about your family's well-being.
Yes.
I think the messaging that went through that enabled a lot of people not wear the belt because there's a fine ahead, but because you care about your family, they care about you. I guess there is an element of that, that connect that you need to to bring in, so that it's not just about enforcement. It's a two-way street. That there's an enforcement happening, but at the same time, a person understands their responsibility not to just their family, but to the other road users also. So I think for rest of those, because most of our fatalities is over speeding, driving on the wrong side of the road. So I guess a concerted campaign requires on those parts also to ensure that this is replicated across, so that, and also we get those numbers down, because we have seen almost like 10 to 12% increase in fatalities, and that's cause concern.
Yeah, it's unacceptable. And given the fact that we are going to have one of the largest road networks in the world, and our roads are second to none. You drive on the roads very often, Justin. You see now good they are, but this is unacceptable. This accident rate, as we just brought out with our story, it's 10 lakh crore. That's a lot of money. That's what it costs India. And as our experts have told us here on the News 9 Plus show, the fact that we need a mindset change. And this is something that the government has to look out for. Whoever comes to power on the 6th of June, Justin, this should be priority number one, bringing down India's accident rate. And I want to see a party, Justin, making this an election promise, that we promise to bring down the accident rate in India. This is unacceptable. 150,000 people dying every year. It's like the population of entire cities in the world. But that's a topic for another day. I'd like to thank Vinesh Menon and Dr. Velu Murugan and Justin Thomas for joining us in this News 9 Plus show here to talk about the 10 lakh crore accident shock.